Emily, you can go ahead. Perfect. We'd also love to see your faces. It's always nice to see some familiar faces, but understand it's a morning meeting. So definitely, if you feel comfortable, please share your face and we can see you on camera. If not, it is not required. I won't be able to see if you're making funny faces at us as we go. I'm also going to talk about some collaborative agreements. We have a breakout session today, and to just tee up that breakout session, we like to kind of set the stage for some ground rules. And if you want to go over to the next slide, Emily, thank you. All of these are pretty much a given, but we like to have them here, and we'll continue to share them in our monthly meetings and in our coffee chats, especially if we're doing anything around smaller breakout sessions where we're asking some targeted questions and asking you to sort of challenge the status quo. Obviously, you'll start the breakout session with introductions, and we'll be able to talk a little bit about each other's organization. But we want to make sure that we keep these things in our frame of mind as we're collaborating. Obviously, celebrating our differences and engaging in anti-racist dialogue is important. But we do our best together. We recognize that the work that we're doing isn't always aligned. Everybody is looking at community engagement, enhanced care management, community support services through a different lens. And part of what makes collaboration strong is that we acknowledge our differences and conflict, and we work through them together as a collaborative, recognizing that we're not always going to agree on everything as we move forward. All right. We'll continue to share these and we'll include them in our future presentations moving forward. Next slide, please, Emily. All right, what are we doing today? We'll do a quick recap, instant replay. We'll have some time for group announcements. I don't know if we've got Dr. Shea on the line, but we have Dr. Shea sharing some CCHP announcements today. Then we'll get into the activity, and we'll close on an overview of our measurement strategy and how it aligns with some of the work that we've been doing the past couple of months. And we'll land on next steps for the rest of May and for the first part of June. If you are just joining, please make sure that you enter your name and your organization's name in the chat so that we have it for roll call. All right, instant replay. So what did we do last month? For those of you who participated in last month's session, we did an exercise called I Like, I Wish, I Wonder. And we used data from that exercise along with data from previous month sessions, and we plugged that into a document that you'll see that's familiar, and we're going to ask you all in your breakout sessions to do something with that information. In addition to that, we had a couple of funding webinars. So we will send out a survey as we do every month. Let us know if those funding webinars were helpful. We did one on Cited. And we also did a session on the TA Marketplace and the data exchange framework. So again, please let us know if that's helpful, and we'll continue to bring those things to either our monthly meetings or our coffee chats. We have, and we'll continue to do an updated network provider map. So we'll be looking at new organizations that have joined our collaborative, and we'll continue to share that Kumu map that we've shared with you all before. I think we have a few updates that we need to make based on some additional information from CCHP. Thank you for that, and we'll add those things to the Kumu map. And then we'll do a shout out via Slack once that map is updated again. All right, Emily, next slide, please. Again, just sort of frame of reference. This is something that we'll always display in each of our monthly meetings, but it really sort of sets the stage again. Why are we here? What are we doing? And so, thank you, Emily. Emily is also sharing as we go in the chat. So any of the materials that we go over today, you'll see a link in the chat. We'll also share those when we share out the meeting materials from today. Yes, Amy, that's a good question. We do have that webinar. We did record it. If it's not yet in the Slack, we'll go ahead and make sure that we share that in the Slack as an action item from today. Of course. All right, next slide, please. In addition to the overall purpose and preface behind our engagement, CalAIM, and CS and ECM services, we've also worked together in the beginning of the year to develop an AIM statement, an overarching goal. What are we looking to do? And the reality is we're looking to do several different things, but we'll use sort of a high level aim, and we'll continue our work thinking with that aim in mind. So as we talk about different activities that we can do as a collaborative, other work groups, or one-off tests to look at ways that we can do things better or different, or make changes to either increase enrollment or be more efficient, decrease some stress or burden in different processes. We do so with that AIM statement in the back of our mind. We'll also be looking at that AIM statement and the work that we're doing as a way to sort of measure all of the different things that we'll do throughout the year, and see if we're really moving forward towards our goal by year end. Next slide, please. Okay, now we'll get into a couple of community announcements. And I don't know, Emily, can you tell me if we have Dr. Shea on? I don't see him join just yet. So let's see if we've got Sokim on the line. Not yet. Okay, so we'll go through just a recap on funding, and I'll go through from a high level on some of the things that we talked about in our last two coffee chats. I know it's a little bit of repeat, but I want to make sure that we talk about them because they have some pending deadlines, due dates in the very near future. So the first is cited funding. So cited funding falls under the PATH umbrella. So under CalAIM and DHCS, part of the work that we're doing under the collaborative is under PATH. In addition to that is capacity, infrastructure, transition, and expansion and development cited. Round one is passed, but round two is open, and applications are due at the end of this month. So for those of you who are interested in cited and or interested in collaborating with other community partners, this due date is fast approaching. We've got some links here. We'll share them in the chat as well. And that was what our first coffee chat was covering. Not this past week, but I think probably 2 weeks ago. But we'll share that recording as well as the TA and data exchange framework recording. In addition to cited funding, there are other funding opportunities that we covered. We covered the TA marketplace in our last coffee chat. We did not get into in-depth justice involved. If that's something that you all are interested in, please let us know. PCG is hosting a few office hours. So if you are interested in round 3 justice involved, there's some upcoming webinars. So we wanted to make sure that we were sharing that information with you. One of them is the 22nd, and then the next is in a few weeks from now on the 5th. And I do see we have a typo. It's 11:30 on the 5th. Thank you, Danny.
Denise,
Go ahead.
can you go back one slide, Emily, to cited? So I just wanted to share a question that we've been asked a couple of times now related to cited funding and if there will be a round 3. We have not heard from the state that there will be. I think initially when they started talking about cited funding, they said 2 to 3 rounds. They full allocation of funds for cited, it was 500 million. And as you see here, 200 or so million was awarded in round 1. So as far as we know, it's an open question whether or not there will be a round 3. And if there is a round 3, how much would be available out of the remaining 500 million. So I know it's for some, it's a quick turnaround and a big lift for applications, but I just wanted to share that based on what we know and what we've heard, because the question has come up in a couple of different forums now in a couple of different ways. If anyone has heard differently about round 3 funding, definitely correct me. I'm speaking from what I know, but it does not necessarily mean that somebody hasn't heard anything else. But I did want to just kind of talk that through a little bit in case you're questioning the same thing.
Thank you for that, Danny. Oh, and it looks like we have a comment from 18 Raisins.
Interesting, Sarah. Okay, that's good to know. I haven't heard that, but
I heard that on a cited webinar, but y'all know how it is. I go to 15 webinars a day because on the cited webinar on Monday, people were saying, oh, and if you don't have to apply for that in this round, you could apply in the next round. So there's a sense that there will be a next round, but it probably won't be until the end of the year.
Yeah, was that PCG that led the webinar that you went to, or was it a different?
Let's see. On Monday, it was, past CPI. It was Intrepid Ascent. It was called Understanding CalAIMS Cited versus TA Marketplace. What's the difference? And should I apply?
Yeah, that's us. So that's funny.
Okay.
And I talked with, to answer this question, I talked with the person who led that webinar to make sure I wasn't mishearing things. So I'll circle back with that answer. What I heard yesterday talking with Sip Kim, who is our CalAIM expert, is what I just shared, that there hasn't been a guaranteed next round. Doesn't mean it's off the table. It just hasn't been announced that there would be.
I mean, the California website says there will be 4 rounds.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, thank you for that. All of that to say, from what we've heard, there is, the funding amount that's been allocated is 500 million, and about a little less than half of that's already been distributed. So just wanted to kind of share that in as everyone's thinking about whether or not to apply. We'll do some more digging though, Sarah, to see if we've, if there's anything else that has come up related to that recently.
And we'll just, based on today's conversation, we'll make sure that we call that out in the email that we send with the meeting materials from today, so that we get, a clear resolution. So we'll make sure that we'll call that out in the body of the email. In addition to PATH, we also talked a little bit about data exchange framework. So round 1 is now open for the data exchange framework. So that just came out this week. So we can share the link to that application for those that have already signed the data sharing agreement and are ready to move forward in round 1. So we also have another webinar coming up on the 22nd that is specific to the data exchange framework. So if it is something that you're tracking or you're interested in learning more about and you were unable to attend the last coffee chat, there's a webinar coming up next week about the data exchange framework on Monday. And I think we have Dr. Shea up next. I don't see him on the line. Is there anyone else on the line from CCHP that was planning to speak in his place today?
Let me see if I can get him on the line.
Thanks, Michael.
We had a gala last night and he was there. I'm so sorry. He's probably as hungover as I am.
Well, I hope it was fun.
It was fantastic.
Good. Good. What we can do. Yeah, Emily wants to know where people wearing fancy outfits.
Of course.
Um,
Emily, you should come next year.
we need pictures.
Oh, there will be pictures.
Well, Michael, hopefully you
He'll
can
be-
get Dr. Shea on the line.
Yeah, he said he'll be here in 10 minutes.
Okay, all right. Well, we can, I don't know, Emily, right after this is the breakout, right?
Denise, why don't I talk about measurements now just for a second?
That sounds great.
Yeah. So one thing that we wanted to just talk about a little bit, if you want to, yeah, thank you, Emily, is measurement and data. So one of the things that, can you go to the next slide, Emily? One of the things that we have been asked to do as facilitators is to come up with a measurement strategy. So Denise shared already the aim statement, trying to increase enrollment of eligible individuals for ECM and community supports is kind of the overarching goal of the collaborative. So as facilitators, we've been asked to come up with a way to understand how are we going to, or to detail out how are we going to know whether or not we're achieving our aim and quantify some specific measures or come up with some specific measures to help quantify the data related to that aim statement. One of the things that we'll be doing after this call is sharing our draft measurement strategy. We want to do this for two reasons. One, because we want to increase transparency around some of the things that we as facilitators are putting together and sharing with PCG, who is the third-party administrator with the state related to these collaboratives. All of the collaboratives across the state have been asked to come up with a measurement strategy. So we're just sharing ours here for this group so you can see what we're starting to think about in terms of what data we're going to be looking to collect over the next 8 or so months. Really, the purpose of defining a measurement strategy is to better understand, are we making progress towards our aim statement collectively as a group? When you see the measurement strategy, when you look at it, you'll see that what we have listed in our aim statement will be there. So one of the things that we'll be measuring is enrollment in ECM and community supports. We're still working to kind of finalize what that data source is, but that's one of the things that we have listed thus far. And then we have a number of other measures that are related to some of the process changes that we might be making as a collaborative, which are directly related to the exercise we'll be doing right after this, where we're trying to get a better sense of, are we making movement in some of these areas that you've all identified as needing to work on in order to get us closer to our aim statement, closer to that goal of increasing enrollment. Thank you for sharing that, Emily. As you look at the measures, a lot of what you'll see is that we're going to, as much as we can, rely on data that can be easily pulled. So we're not going to be asking organizations to do a lot of kind of pulling of data themselves and providing that with us and the collaborative to share collectively. We're going to really rely more on things like surveys that we do in the collaborative meetings, where we get a general sense, are we moving towards our aim? Are you seeing change within your organization where you're enrolling more individuals, where you're feeling like you're having more connections across Contra Costa County and across the community? So we're really trying to kind of strike the balance of having enough information to understand whether or not collectively as a collaborative we're making progress, and then also being able to show that we're moving towards that aim while not asking too much from all of you, all of us, on collecting and analyzing that data. I'll pause for a second and see if there are any questions. Emily, do you want to pull up the measurement strategy just really quick so we can peek at it together? And again, this is a draft. So kind of next steps for us, there's a couple of things that we need to do. One, we need to continue conversations around how to collect some of this data, specifically around enrollment. So, continuing to have conversations about that. And if it doesn't seem like there's an easy or a clean way to do that, we might shift the way we're measuring that a little bit. But then what we want to do is, after the exercise today, where we dig more into action steps or next steps that we can take related to some of the problems or some of the opportunities that have been identified thus far, we want to make sure that everything is still aligned. So there will likely be another revision for this document where we take the information we heard today and reframe the measures a little bit to make sure it matches with what you all prioritize as needing to move forward. So you see here, just to kind of orient you to the document, this has our aim statement. And then if you keep scrolling, it has outcome measures, which are the measures that are embedded within your aim statement. And then process measures are measures that you're measuring at a level, an intermediate level, where you can show progress towards your aim, but it's not necessarily getting to that aim or that goal. So for instance, thinking about what are some ways that we can measure service expansion and transition, because that was an area that was identified as needing to have some focus and support. Similar, the next measure down is equitable engagement and service, and flow of services is another one. So I would definitely ask you all to take a look at this, see if you have any thoughts or feedback. Again, this is a draft. We'll be doing one more revision and can share that revision out. And then we'll talk a little bit more about next steps related to how to collect some of that data, probably in the June meeting and or coffee chat. Okay, any final questions? Great. Okay, so one of the things that we have been asked to do as a part of this collaborative is to help explain QI methodology or different ways to approach systems change using quality improvement. We would love to hear from you how interested you are in learning more about that. We're thinking that one thing that we might do is set up a separate meeting where we dig into some of these details a little bit more and draw out some of the quality improvement methods. So just wanted to get a quick sense from you all. Is this something you would be interested in? Yes, no, maybe so. Definitely, let us know, give us feedback here. Totally understand if you have a million other things going on and this just isn't the right time, or maybe you very much already know about quality improvement and the methodologies that could be used and don't really feel a need to be a part of a work group here. So there's a poll right now, if you wouldn't mind responding to the poll. I'll give it just another minute or so. It looks like we're still getting some responses.
And we'll also, we can also try and share that in our Slack channel after the fact, because I know there's some folks missing from the call today.
Yep. Okay, great. So just for those that are on the call today, it looks like most people might be interested. They need a little bit more information before signing up, which totally is understandable. There's about a quarter of the people who are interested and a quarter who aren't necessarily interested right now. So what we'll do as a takeaway is two things. One, do what Denise just shared of sharing this in the Slack and just making sure that we get kind of a full snapshot of interest across the collaborative. And then we'll also share out some additional information around what we're thinking, what some of the topics we'll cover. Really, I think it will be taking the content and the action items that we're talking about here within the collaborative and applying, drawing out some of the QI concepts on how to move those forward. So it'll really be grounded in the work that we're doing within the collaborative, but doing a little bit more teaching and talking about quality improvement methodologies and how those can be leveraged to drive forward some of the work that we're doing here. But we can put some of that on paper, share that out, and also share out some ideas around the timing and the length of all of that. So you have kind of a full picture of what you'd be signing up for before you do. Any final questions there?
I know we're still waiting for Dr. Shea to join. Maybe what we could do is just outline the instructions for the exercise today. And then if we get him before we break out into smaller groups, great. If not, we can go over CCHP updates at the end of today's session. Just really quick, I want to kind of set the stage for our breakout session today. We have an activity planned based on information that you all have given us from previous meetings, from the surveys, and from the I like, I wish, I wonder exercise last month. So what we've done is we've displayed that data in 4 categories. And we're going to ask in each of the groups to have you look at the content in those categories, the activities or actions that we could engage in as a community. And thanks, Michael. And we'll ask you to rate those items of in order of priority. So if you're looking at different activities and the group that is coming together under that category says, you know, this is lower priority for us, but this is our priority number 1. So we're looking for you to prioritize. And then if you want to hit over to the next, thank you so much. In addition to identifying maybe your top 3 priorities on that list, we are going to ask you all to think about a next step. So considering what you've shared with us as an opportunity, what activity could we do as a collective or even as a work group to advance that issue? And so we'll go through, for those human-centered design folks, something like this is called prototyping. For those with QI methodology background, something like this is called a little bit like a PDSA. But what we're doing right now is we're just taking the items that you all have shared with us, and we've packaged them into 4 different categories. We're going to ask you to choose which breakout room you want to go to. There's going to be 4 different large categories. And then we're going to ask you to rate your top 3 priorities and discuss in your group what activities we could do to test or to advance those priorities. After that activity, we'll come back together and we'll review our priorities, our top 3 priorities, and we'll ask for someone to volunteer to sign up as someone that can help take that forward. You're not doing it alone, but if it's something that you think that you might have the ability, power, control, opportunity to change, what we will do is then set up a meeting with you outside of this and talk more with you directly about the how. Does that make sense? Show of hands, yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, I see a thumbs up. I don't see a lot of smiling faces. As our folks are not really interested in doing. Okay, there you go. Sarah, you need more coffee. This is going to be an engaged discussion. I'm excited.
I do. Listen, I went to bed at 1. I have a baby. I woke up at 7.
Oh my gosh. This is the wrong day for this. This is going to be we're going to be rolling up our
That's right.
sleeves.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. I'm ready to brainstorm.
This is an active Google sheet too. So if there's things that come up after, this is a document that you all have access to. We've modified it, and then we'll continue to do that as a collaborative. Thank you. Emily is going to share that. Thanks, Emily. We've also, I think, hidden a few of the columns, but they're there. We have all of the raw data from different surveys and different activities. We've tried to indicate the initial source. So if it came up in our March meeting or our coffee chat, so that you have sort of a frame of reference. But again, as you break out into that group, if you're looking at those things and they seem less of a priority to you today, we're just looking for you to maybe identify your 3. And for those groups who are super ambitious, identify your top 5. But I think between 1 and 3 would be ideal. And then talking through a next step. So that's all we're looking to do. Priorities 1 through 3 and next steps. I'm glad that you know what that is, Emily. I don't know, Michael, do you think we don't have Dr. Shea just yet?
I'm pinging him again.
If he's okay, we can do it. We can certainly end with it after the exercise. Oh, I see he's just entered the waiting room. And connecting to audio. Dr. Shea, you're the man of the hour. But you're on mute.
Good. I said good afternoon, then I corrected myself. I was saying it feels like afternoon because I've been in so many meetings, but good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning. Good morning. We just talked a little bit about what we're going to do today in our breakout session. I'll catch you up to speed, but if you are ready, we did kind of tee things up to share that you are going to do a little bit of a CCHP announcement and share out.
Yeah, so I think we have some updates to share. So I think, one of the big things is we are starting to do training sessions with our ECM providers. I think thanks to Lene and her team over at Public Health, as well as our sort of future providers of behavioral health, as well as the FQs, we had our first session on non-emergency medical transport, non-medical transport. We also touched on sort of the basics of appeals and grievances, as well as the process. And I think it was actually a really positive conversation. I think Lene, I think you were there as well, right, Lene? There was a lot of good questions, I think, especially around NMT, non-medical transport. And I think that not surprising to me, given that's the resource that's used much more than non-emergency medical transport. But hopefully it helped. And I think, really, I felt like positive engagement, really good conversation with the case managers, and a really positive way of moving forward. So we're looking forward. We're doing, 2 of each session. So we're doing 1 more of these. We have 2 more scheduled, one really focused on pharmacy services, because I think from looking at a lot of the renewals, there's been a lot of work around getting people mail order meds, troubleshooting Medi-Cal RX. So we really wanted to have our pharmacy team really have a conversation with Lene's team and the rest of the teams to think through, like, what's the best way to troubleshoot on, challenging medical issues. How do getting mail order meds is a benefit. It's a covered benefit. How do you make that happen? So for your homebound patients or those with mobility issues, it's one less barrier to staying healthy. And then we're also going to sort of go through some of the community supports in that session. And then our third session, we're sort of going to highlight some of the additional community supports and also focus on, sort of working with inpatient teams in terms of thinking through communication, in terms of thinking through strategies, in terms of how to work with our case management and teams that navigate the inpatient teams, and really try to build stronger bridges to our inpatient teams across the county when those high-risk patients are hospitalized. So I think those are some starting points. We're not sure the first session had a lot of good conversation. It may run into a 4th session. And that's totally great. I think we really want to, it's not, my opinion is it's not useful to just lecture. It's really for the conversation to answer those questions and really try to sort of encourage dialogue, try to educate how the plan can help, how, who to reach out to if there are problems in real time, so that we can get those problems solved in real time. So I think, thank you, Lene, and to her team and the rest of the teams for attending and really being engaged participants in that conversation. And then I think, in terms of other updates for CCHP, I think a couple of things. One is we are expanding our community supports. Part of the reason I was late is, we're sort of looking at expanding in 2 directions, right? One is obviously, I think Michael probably gave an update. We've really worked with H3 to expand the capacity through H3 in terms of navigation, in terms of really, we've had some really good success stories in terms of getting complicated patients in conjunction with CCRMC, with Lene's team and with Jenny and Michael's team into housing. So I think there's been really good synergy there. And I think, part of the conversation we were having earlier was really thinking through, sort of what additional expansions can happen, how we can support additional capacity in the post-hospital stabilization space. And, not quite yet ready to announce those, but I think we have 2 big things we're going to push out. And then once they're ready, once they're sort of actually look like they're going to happen, we'll announce them. I think we just have to go through some logistics in terms of expanding that post-hospital stabilization capacity. But I think they both make a lot of sense. And then on the other things, we've been working through the other community support. So both of the navigation out of SNFs and for navigation to prevent people from going into SNFs, given the whole long-term care transition, both of those we're doing in-house right now through our case management teams, and really sort of trying to come up with the best practice approach, because I think, the people who get stuck in skilled nursing facilities are those who are the most challenging and really do require a multidisciplinary approach in terms of looking at, like, okay, what are the family resources? What do they need, right? What are the housing resources? What are all the possible financial resources? How can we be creative to step people down? And, we just had a good success story for a patient who's been in a skilled nursing facility at And another one that's been in the hospital for a long time that we're getting into a boarding care for both of those patients. So I think we're starting to make some moves on those, but it's taking, I think, sort of a lot of creative thinking and a lot of work. So I think that's part of the reason why we're keeping in the plan, just because I think the plan has a little more flexibility when it comes to being creative with financial resources and sort of bring people together to really put together a package, right? Because like $5 here, $5 there adds up to a lot, but you still may be missing $5, and we have that flexibility to put in that last $5 if needed. So I think, really, I think over the next 3 to 6 months, we're really going to see a lot of movement in that space as we get sort of a better understanding on what are the tips and tricks to navigate that. And then, in terms of supporting the transition of people out of long-term care, we are working on going live with both the home modification to support people coming out of skilled nursing facilities or out of hospitals, or to keep people in their homes. And we have a vendor that we're under, in the contracting process with, although not yet fully contracted. So once we have that, we'll make that available, as well as with both sort of caregiver respite and IHSS wraparound services. We also have a provider who's in the process of being contracted for that. So I think, we're really making a big push with this long-term care carve-in as of January 1 to bring online all of the community supports that will help with getting people out of long-term care or prevent them from going into long-term care, and really sort of seeing that package of community supports, the sort of the 2 navigation ones, the home modification one, as well as the caregiver respite and sort of the supplemental, IHSS services, like those 5 community supports as key parts of the package of, a little bit here, a little bit there, to make a reasonable overall package. So we're super excited about that. And I think hopefully in the next 2 months, we should have, sort of much more concrete details to share with everybody. But I think we've really been sort of trying to push these out as part of that package, because otherwise you're just missing a part of a tool that could be helpful and is often the missing part of the puzzle in getting someone out of long-term care or keeping them out of long-term care. So I think that's sort of highlight, quick update on both the ECM side of the house as well as the community support side of the house.
Dr. Shea, thank you so much for that. If folks are interested in the training sessions, do they have to register?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've sent most of them out to pretty much all the providers. I think, the Community Clinic Consortium, but yeah, if anyone's not getting them and they're interested, they should just reach out to my admin, Vanessa Pena, and she can get them the invite. And
Okay.
we're recording them, Vanessa, we have 2 shots at each one. So, we will edit those and sort of put together the best version of both online. And then also, I think one of our team, Beth Hernandez, who's our quality director, is also going to work with her team to help do sort of boil down 15-minute introductions to different topics, and also sort of make a separate video series based on, the questions and answers that Lynette and her team and others are putting forward, so that we have sort of hopefully like bite-sized FAQ kind of trainings
Right.
available for new staff that, hopefully over the next 6 months will roll out on the website as well.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Is there any questions for Dr. Shea for CCHP? All right. That sounds great. Thank you so much for sharing. And we'll circle back to our exercise for today. Dr. Shea, if you want to hold off from selecting, or actually, I think Emily put the instructions in the chat. Emily, thank you for that. You're going to see a screen that's going to give you an opportunity to select one of the 4 groups. And it looks like I'm in, Emily, when I look at the 4 rooms, oh, I see, I have to, for whatever reason, it's you have to scroll down. It's not showing me the 4 rooms. Is everybody seeing the 4 rooms? Equitable payer and provider partnerships, community anchored workforces and engagement, and streamlined and efficient referrals, data standardization. If you can't see them, there's a little arrow on the left if you're in unassigned, and you can roll them up. But what we'll ask you to do is pick the group that you want to join. And then once the groups are in, you'll do some introductions, and then you should be able to have, Emily just shared the link again, so that you can have a conversation about prioritization. If
And-
anybody has any questions, there's a question opportunity in the breakout session, but also, you know, if you want to hang on before joining a breakout session, we're here.
And Denise, did you mention that we, Intrepid, won't be in the rooms the whole time? We'll be popping in and out.
I did not mention that, but thank you for that. Yeah, so if anybody has any questions for us, our intent is to let you have an organic conversation, but you can always select the help, and it will ping Emily and let her know that we'll have somebody join that session. And then we'll check in with the group, with each of the groups in a little bit, just to make sure that if you have any questions, we're available, or if you feel stalled in your conversation, that we can hopefully hop on and try and unstick the group. All right. So Emily, I don't know if you can pull that. Will that breakout screen come back up? Oh, thank you. At the bottom, menu bar, you'll see breakout rooms. For those of you that haven't selected a breakout room yet, you can click on that, and then you can decide which of the 4 breakout rooms you want to join. And again, just as a reminder, this is all information that you shared with us in previous meetings and in our I like, I wish, I wonder. And Emily's saying, for whatever reason, if you can't self-assign, just let her know and she can move you into a breakout room.
I'm assuming, Denise, if no one's in one, I should join one that there's people in it, correct?
Which one are you looking to join?
I was looking at the data standardization, but I can definitely do efficient referral systems too. So I'll join that one and offer less next time.
That sounds good. Dr. Shea, do you have any questions about the exercise, since I know you weren't able to join right at the top of the meeting?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how to get into the rooms.
We can assign you. Do you know which room you want to join?
Oh, there we go. I see it. I think I'm gonna. It looks like there's nobody in equitable payer and provider partnership, so me going there is not going to be helpful. So I'm going to go into the streamlined and efficient referral systems.
That means that there's already equitable payer provider partnerships. It's not a priority.
Exactly. We have pretty straightforward processes. If you want to be a provider, just reach out. So, all right. I will see you guys in streamlined and efficient referral systems.
Sounds great.
All right, Dennis, I threw that in there as a 1, and that's what we did.
So, show of hands to who's left. This was not a fun and exciting exercise at all. Yes, okay. That's all right. A couple of things. We'll, I'm gonna ask you guys to share feedback. But I just want to acknowledge a couple of things. Normally, this meeting is on a different day. We did have a bunch of folks that dropped for another meeting. So we'll circle back with the group via Slack and via email. I'm also going to work with the team here, and we'll put together a more targeted feedback survey for you guys. I want to thank you for staying on the line, but then also sort of ask you all, if this collaborative meeting isn't working and the exercises and activities that we are doing aren't helpful, then we certainly want to know those things so that we can make changes and do things that are different and helpful to the community. So we'll ask you guys, you know, what's not working that we need to be doing and that we need to start doing so that this is, you know, a meaningful, you know, collaborative for you all, because it's your time and I know how incredibly busy you all are. So just acknowledging that and then opening up the floor for any feedback.
I don't know. I mean, I think from my perspective, the thing that's the most useful is we spend most of our time talking through specific sort of troubleshooting specific things sort of related to the issue. So it may be, I don't know, I mean, it may just be like at least sort of having key topics and then sort of diving into them and just workshopping them in real time as opposed to trying to prioritize may be helpful in terms of sort of helping address pain points in real time.
Yeah, just picking 1 or 3 as a group and just staying all together in the group and workshopping it.
Yeah, or even in small groups workshopping different key topics, right? Because I mean, I think that's where we spent most of our time just workshopping a few key topics as opposed to discussing priorities, because those key topics are what problems we want to solve now. And if we can solve them now, no need to prioritize them.
Got it. Any other feedback? Don't be shy. I'm not a sensitive person. I can take it.
Neither are we. I think we're pretty blunt, so or at least I'm pretty blunt. So.
And Dr. Shea, while I have you on key topics, are there like a couple, 1 or 2 things that you're like, this is what we should be talking about?
I mean, I think it's more for Sarah and Lene and others, right? I think I feel like for us, it's really trying to think through problems with them and hitting on their pain points. At this point, like, you know, I have pain points, but those are more sort of internal, not necessarily relevant here.
And I would
Yeah,
say, oh, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Well,
I was just gonna say, we don't want to take up
oh.
time like in the general meeting with individual problems. I know that's not super helpful for everybody, but sometimes it is, like, just to hear what other folks are using. But sometimes I know that's not exciting for everyone. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, the breakout groups, like, I can understand the idea behind them, but like, we all had to come to one group anyways, and it's actually helpful to have everyone at the table kind of like sharing that. So I don't know if we're at a place, like, I still feel like we're still in the early stages where like all being in one group is actually more helpful to hear from everyone versus like breaking out and like not having everyone part of the conversation.
I think it was helpful though to be able to choose which group you wanted to be in based on the topic instead of being broken up randomly and potentially being in a topic that you can't speak to or that isn't pertinent to what you're actively doing.
I wonder if we were to poll the group and just give, you know, 3 topics so that when we have, you know, our next conversation, that will sort of keep things sort of a topic focused, but all stay together. Or we'll pick on folks to do a shout out, maybe the first one, and then have a discussion and set a certain amount of time for each. Any other feedback? In addition to troubleshooting and other things that are sort of happening in the community, would it be helpful for us to bring other content to this group? Are there things that you'd like to see that you're not seeing us do? If something comes to you after the fact, let us know. I'll take this feedback back to the rest of the team. We'll try and retool, and we'll put together a survey to go out to the whole collaborative. And hopefully we'll do more in the next coffee chat. I thank you guys for participating, especially after having a gala yesterday. So appreciate it, and for giving us some honest feedback. Let us know if you have other feedback to share that comes up after the session.
Thanks so much.